Well, as we said, the government is clearly in a race against time. What options do they have? To discuss that, here in the studio with me, Dr. Arvind Virmani, the former Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, M.K. Venu, senior journalist, joining us. Also live from their locations, Nikhil Dey, the co-convener of the NCPRI and the social activist, joining us as well, and the Congress spokesperson Sushmita Dev. We are expecting GVL Narasimha Rao of the BJP as well to join us in the course of this discussion. But I want to actually open this with Nikhil Dey. Mr. Dey, your concerns about the amendments to the existing Land Acquisition Act?
All of them almost, except for the fact that they have brought those 13 other acts within the purview for compensation. Almost all the other amendments, doing away with the social impact assessment is disastrous. Removing and reducing the amount of, even reducing the amount of consent required from farmers is disastrous. And using this particular thing, that whether it is industrial corridors or whether it is for purposes of educational institutions or for hospitals or for what they very loosely term as housing projects, all these are going to actually take away all that the 2013 Act did. And therefore, there is no reason that anyone will politically support this particular act. It is an act that the BJP itself asked for, and with a consensus it was passed. And activists like us felt that it was not farmer friendly enough. So today, and not just farmers, non-landholders who live in those areas have actually been done out of a lot. And if social impact assessment is removed, farmers will not be able to show that this is not a public purpose issue. And those who don't have land holdings but who live on that ecosystem in that area will have nothing to turn to at all. So It is a disastrous act which will result in huge amounts of social conflict, huge amounts of conflict on the ground. And even if Parliament somehow the BJP pushes it through with a joint session, it will give rise to huge conflict on the ground.
Right. All right, Nikhil Dey. GVL Narasimha Rao of the BJP is with us. Ms. Narasimha Rao, I want you to first respond to what Nikhil Dey has said about the concerns. But secondly, also perhaps a point to take this discussion forward. The Prime Minister said last week in Parliament that if there was a perception that the new ordinance and the new amendments that the government sought were unfriendly towards the farmers, they were willing to look at them and consider changing those amendments as well. So where is the government on that commitment?
No, I think the government firmly believes that the bill that is before Lok Sabha now, I think it's in the interest of the farmers, and it's also in the interest of the poor of the country and the rural people. I think people who are opposing, particularly the opposition parties, the BJP leadership believes, the government believes that these concerns have not been articulated well. If there is any valid reason to believe that any of these reasons could affect the farmers, the government has an open mind. I think to somehow completely to call it anti-farmer is more of a political opposition to the new bill in Parliament rather than a reasoned argument, because the 5 sectors where these exemptions have been given.
Mr. Rao, the BJP is obviously concerned, the government is obviously concerned about the kind of opposition this bill is seeing. There was a meeting with Mamata Banerjee today. Many are saying that's also been an attempt to try and get West Bengal and the Trinamool Congress on board. Their position on land acquisition is very clear.
No, it is the duty of it is expected of the government in office to try and build a consensus and try and get as many political parties to agree to the legislation that we want to bring in both houses of Parliament. There is nothing wrong about it. And the BJP is firmly of the belief, the government is of the belief that unless these changes are made, it will not only it will not be able to bring about the kind of economic change and prosperity that the government intends to bring in the next few years. The legislation of 2013, which we have supported wholeheartedly, But the experience in the last year or so has been that unless certain changes are made, this could actually militate against the interests of the rural people,
Okay.
the poor and the farmers themselves. And the BJP is committed to explaining its position on this,
All right,
both
the
on the
BJP
floor of
explaining
House,
its position.
both
MK,
on the floor of Parliament and outside.
On this.
No, I just want to point out that besides the opposition parties and the allies of BJP, there is a huge opposition to the ordinance in its present form from Sangh Parivar outfits. RSS is not happy with it. Bharatiya Kisan Sangh's leader, who has spoken publicly, not opposed to it. Swadeshi Jagaran Manch leaders have said social impact assessment is the done thing. Even World Bank does social impact assessment for project loans. And the Chief Minister of Haryana, BJP CM, has given an interview to our newspaper, Amar Ujala, saying that he is going to take consent of farmers and he's not going to acquire land without consent, and he will not go for multi-crop land. He'll go for, he's on record. So already I see that the BJP, some of the BJP states are rolling back. So I see a rollback already happening. I don't know what GVL is referring to.
Okay. All right. Mr. Virmani, I want to ask you that in a sense, the idea of land acquisition, I mean, one part of it is public-private partnership, another part is also to help private enterprise along as well. But if private enterprise wants this land, why doesn't the government say you go and negotiate directly with the people who own the land? Why is the government coming in as a broker, so to speak, on this?
So there are many economic issues involved, but let me start with one major problem with the whole act. And that is, it has terribly bureaucratized. You know, we have this habit of controlling land. By the way, I don't know of any other non-communist country which has more controls on land even before this act than the Indian states do. All this has done is added layers and layers of bureaucracy on top of it. That's point one. Secondly, I still remember why people like me thought of were starting to talk about land reforms in the government. And that was two major issues. One is dams. Okay, because dams really cover tens of acres of land. It's a different dimension of a problem. You cannot apply what is needed there to the whole land acquisition process all over the country on everything. So dams is a real serious problem because you wipe out villages, you wipe out whole areas. That's a special problem which should have been dealt with specially. The second problem which we were all concerned about is, I don't want to mention chief ministers and names of states, but there was this issue of building corridors, forget which one, I mean I know which one it is, but talking about 100 miles of land on both sides of the corridor just being acquired. That concerned me, because what I know what the actual thing happens is that who benefits? It's always the corrupt governments who benefit from this, not the farmer, not the businessman. So I actually am opposed, if you want to talk economics, this whole debate on farmer versus business, I think is a red herring.
Okay,
in my economic view.
Let the Congress come in on that. Sushmita Dev, the debate on farmer versus business being a red herring, this is not the way to go about creating economic development at all, according to Arvind Virmani. Your comments?
See, I just want to say, before we get into the debate of pro-farmer or anti-farmer, this was an act that was passed in 2013. It was passed by way of a consensus. You have to first test it on the ground. Have we had enough time to see whether this is anti-farmer and whether this is anti-development, anti-infrastructure?
Okay.
Nobody knows.
So,
all of a sudden, an ordinance has been brought in. I mean, let it work. Let's see the ground reality.
All right, GVL Narasimha Rao,
where
the
is all
Congress
this debate coming from?
Okay, GVL Narasimha Rao, the Congress is saying the debate itself is premature. Why not give the existing act a chance? Arvind Virmani clearly saying that even in its current form, the bureaucratization of this process is what is the biggest worry for industry.
But you see, when Congress makes such comments, I think one is forced to really ask this question. Why is it that Congress-led state governments, and for that matter, all state governments, unanimously felt changes are required in the land acquisition law? Is it that the Congress leadership, Sonia Gandhi and others, have no say whatsoever with regard to their party-ruled states? Why is it that they have been demanding changes? The Congress ruled Kerala, even when they were in power in Maharashtra and Haryana. They all asked for implementation changes, and even the deputy leader of the Congress party in Rajya Sabha and Anand Sharma as commerce minister exactly said what we are saying today. So how can you speak in two voices?